This week on Backyard Footy.
There's still the limited side of things when it comes to the women's national team, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, women's national team, I believe red, white, and blue, it's so great, American Outlaws, yay. And then when it comes to, well, can you name someone other than Alex Morgan?
Exactly right.
Do you know someone other than because you like how they look? Do you
Right.
know? Maybe?
But you got to start somewhere.
That's like women who say that.
Really, I mean, that's okay. Just like golf. I mean, how many people knew of any kind of professional golfer
Right.
who wasn't Arnold Palmer
Right.
or Jack Nicklaus before the '90s roll around
Right.
and Tiger Woods? It's like, oh, well, because that person, Tiger Woods, he crossed all kinds of boundaries. It was no longer just a golf thing with him.
Right.
It was a cultural thing. It was an athletic thing.
Right.
Because, you know, like, you still have the argument of, well, is golf actually a sport? So, you know, you have to start somewhere.
What's up, footy fans? It's your host, Hugh Roberts, aka Superhuman. Like I said last episode, follow me on all social media platforms, Twitter, IG, Facebook at Superhuman. We're here back live for episode 30 of Backyard Footy, where each episode I dive into the backgrounds, journeys, and experiences of former athletes, professional athletes, and anyone that's been involved with the game. I have some very, very exciting local guests here with me. One of the biggest, or two of the biggest media outlets here in Charlotte. A year ago, they had me on their show, and now here they are on my show, my first media outlets ever. So without further ado, I'm glad to introduce you guys to the QC Chronicle and the Charlotte Post, Ashley Mahoney and Herbert White. What's up, you guys?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
QC Chronicle is the first and the best soccer-specific outlet here in Charlotte, and the Charlotte Post is an award-winning African-American publication, which is considered the voice of the black community. So very, very excited to have you guys on my show. A lot of topics to talk about. So first off, though, how did you guys even get started representing the African American community and the soccer community?
Nice show, though.
You mean simultaneously, or?
One is definitely a lot older than the other.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the Post is historic, and you talk about legacy media. The Post has been around since 1906.
Wow.
During the time of, obviously it was a different America, where African Americans were not that far removed from emancipation and all the things that went with that. It was a very difficult time during that period, and the Post was brought along to help inform African Americans in Charlotte about opportunities as well as the news of the day, whether it was on a social front. Politically, we were limited, obviously, because it was the Jim Crow South, but in terms of just being able to survive and understanding community and where we fit in as black Americans, that's where the Post got its wings, and it's been around since 1906. It's evolved with the times.
Wow.
They're at the forefront of the civil rights movement, and into the 21st century. There's been plenty of changes. We've evolved along with the times,
Right.
in terms of what we cover and how we cover it, and expanding our reach to different audiences. And that's where Queen City Football Chronicle comes in, where we reached out to what had previously been to be mildly nice about it, a totally foreign audience
Right.
for the Post in
Right.
terms of covering soccer. We covered other sports, obviously, over the years, primarily football, basketball, baseball,
Right.
and we would throw in the occasional Olympic sport. But Ashley talked me into expanding that into something a bit more full-time, more robust in terms of how we cover soccer. And 4 years ago, it got off the ground, and we've been running at varying speeds ever since.
Now, you have to take it back to how did all of that start with QCFC before it became QCFC? So I know that we'll be sure to harass this fellow former independent center back, but my first assignment with the Post was actually a feature on Bilal Duckett when he played for the Charlotte Eagles.
Yep.
And I harass him all the time. I'm like, you have to understand, the dawn of QCFC started with you.
Right.
That story doesn't happen. The boss doesn't give that assignment.
Wow.
QCFC probably doesn't exist today.
Wow, the pioneer.
So that's that all goes back to him. And then the Eagles made the playoffs that season, and I was just an intern apprentice at the time and said, hey, you know, what if after this 49ers football game I go over to Queens and cover the Eagles too? Maybe that'll work.
Right.
And thankfully the boss is like, sure, go do it. Let's see what you come up with.
Mad respect for both of you guys. I mean, one just cover the African American community here in the city. I've been in 4 different cities, and I don't really think there's like a specific coverage for that. And so to bring notoriety to that is big plus in my mind. And you know, in another sense, soccer is almost a minority in this country as well. And so for you to just pick up and cover soccer as well, I mean, again, it's first for soccer specific outlet I've been introduced to in my career as well in the city. So tremendous work for you guys, and it's been awesome just following you guys as well and the support that you guys have been doing. So talk to us kind of what's it been like over the years following the African American community and soccer.
You mean both simultaneously, or just one and the other?
One and the other. You can talk to us.
Well, I mean, covering Black Charlotte is it's a handful because there's so many great stories in this city, and so what we try to do is get ourselves immersed in the community, understand Charlotte's culture, as well as what makes Black Charlotte run. And you know, believe it or not, we're not a singular type of thing. There is no such thing purely as Black Charlotte. There is, you know, we're as diverse as any other group of people.
Right.
And you know, we're into different things, and we have different likes, we have different tastes, we have different concerns. So whether you are college educated or a high school dropout, you know, gay, straight, you know, in the faith, totally agnostic or whatever. We come in different flavors, and we try to encourage folks to understand that, yeah, we are as different as the fingers on a hand, and we all have a role to play, and it's our job to tell those stories. And to me, as a journalist, that is, you know, that's the main thing you should wake up in the morning thinking about. How can I tell this particular story that I'm working on today? And it's been really good work. I've been there since 1987.
Wow.
And so it's been amazing to watch the city grow and the role of African Americans in the city grow, and just understanding and appreciating where we've all come from to where we are right now.
I see the culture is very strong here in Charlotte. One of the first things I noticed when I moved down in comparison to other cities that I've been living with, definitely from, I don't know how long ago it's been, but from however long ago, it's been very strong still because of that. So I completely agree.
Yeah.
What about in the soccer community?
Oh goodness, I'll dive back a little bit, and people will see Charlotte Soccer Twitter and think that's it. And the best example will probably be in 2017 when my mom died, and the reaction from people who have followed our coverage. We started a scholarship shortly thereafter, and it was entirely funded through a GoFundMe, and the people who poured out of the woodwork were all people who were Jack's Militia people who were involved in the Charlotte soccer scene. And seeing that, the way that they chant for you guys after a game.
Right.
And I was walking around the perimeter just, taking pictures of guys like Enzo or whomever signing autographs, and suddenly you hear them screaming, "We love you, Ashley, we do." And that was right after she died. And I'm like, all right, don't start crying here. Do not start crying here. But no, because of that, because of the impact that this has had, you know, we've been able to touch lives in soccer, outside of soccer, and just people say, oh, it's just soccer, it's just a game. Like, it's so much more than that.
It is. I mean, I had Enzo here on my show last episode, and he's coming from Uruguay, leaving his family, coming over across, and people look at the Martinez bros and think they're aggressive people, but they're just very passionate.
They're the kindest people you'll ever meet.
Like, coming from a third world country, sometimes you just don't understand the passion and the hunger that one might have just to achieve some kind of success. So, I mean, it just speaks to their hard work on the field and what's got them here, but people kind of misinterpret that because of how driven they are.
Yeah, they're good dudes, just don't get caught with the ball.
The best thing to see was having someone challenge either one of them, and immediately, it didn't matter if they were on the pitch or not, immediately the other brother was right behind him like, you mess with him, you're messing with me.
Yeah. Something I've always known throughout my career, but to see that last year firsthand, even in practices too. Oh yeah.
I realized that, you know, their parents have a restaurant off of Old Pineville, and, you know, people were like, we have no idea this existed, and suddenly it's all right, we're just gonna have a giant family dinner, everyone's gonna pour in, like, what's the best thing on the menu, what do we order, we want to see, you know, your jerseys hanging on the wall, and see all that come to life.
What were some of the challenges for you guys doing both of these media outlets? What's it been like over the years for you?
Well, we face the same challenges that any other outlet faces these days. When you're talking about the squeeze on the business models, keeping the lights on and the doors open is always the tricky part. And especially now with the internet being what it is, you have to find new ways of bringing that cash in. Some folks are trying different types of models, as is the Post, and so we depend on readers to keep us in a position where we can continue to serve them. And so we have a combination model where people can subscribe, they can donate, or as well as advertise in the Post. And so we're always trying new things to encourage more people to do those types of things. And so you know, it's challenging, but it's also fun because we've been put in a position, just like anybody else who's in media these days, to find new ways to expand and to keep that money flowing one way or another. Hook or crook, I guess, is the watchword for today.
Yeah, it's an interesting experience because you've seen a totally different era in terms of journalism, you know, before the dawn of a predominantly digital era, and that evolution, my only experience has been, you know, digital heavy, the influence of social media, and, you know, if you talk about in the 80s, video,
it was actually on tape. So when I hear folks now say, like, yeah, I have to go back and look at the tape, and I'm like, no, bro, there's no tape anymore. It's all video. It's digitized. So yeah, it's a totally different thing now. And back in the day, like maybe a decade or so ago, good old-fashioned print advertising was king of the hill, and it still is, but it won't be long until that throne has to be abdicated because of the onset, or some would argue the onslaught, of digital advertising. And it's not necessarily keeping pace with the old school advertising model, which was very profitable, but obviously with the disruption that goes on now because of the digital revolution, you've got to find a different way to do it. And a reader-supported model is a good avenue to take. And
that's something that I've discussed with people about how, content should be free. It's like, this isn't free. This is not free. If you want this, you have to pay for this. And there's that balance of, we were talking about this on the drive over, of people who want, there are so many stories to tell and you want those stories out there, but if you can't pay your bills, then how do people expect you to continue to tell these stories? It's like, look, I've got to go out and get a 9 to 5. I can't continue to do this.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, I missed that. Well, if you miss it, then support it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's funny how folks want you to give it up for nothing,
Right.
but they're not willing to give theirs up.
Never that.
So
Never that.
it's like, okay, well, put yourselves in your own shoes.
Right.
Would you give that away?
Exactly. Exactly. What about for QC Chronicle? What have been some of the challenges since you?
Okay, it's funny. The other night, actually, and I will give credit to this individual because that actually sparked the idea for a series that we'll be launching shortly, and by shortly I mean today. You'll have to look for that. You'll have to go over
Under the hat.
You'll have to go over to the charlottepost.com, the QCFC section to find out what it is. But, you know, they tagged me in something, you know, when the Independence was playing Stumptown and Owen Barber happened to be an academy kid who was out there, and they did not bother to look and see that at the end of the video clip that we had posted, you will see copyright the Charlotte Post, video Ashley Mahoney. And they tagged me and said, oh, I thought you cover soccer. I thought you'd want to know about kids in the pros. And immediately someone jumped on them and said, excuse me, my good sir. Do you know who put that video together?
Right.
Like, oh my God, where's the embarrassed emoji? I'm so sorry. But no, often, a lot of times, you know, this week is CIAA tournament week.
Yeah.
And
Talk about that a little.
we've had photographers who would be like, yeah, people will ask me, where's your journalist? And like, that's her. Like, where? That's her. The little white girl down there. Yeah, the little white girl writing for the black paper. That's her.
Of course, right?
And to that end, it's like, okay, sure, fine. The boss knows that I can get the job done, so no problems there. But at the same time, when you talk about a woman at a black paper who started something along with that paper that is soccer specific,
Right.
you're tackling quite a few things in terms of
Yeah.
a woman in sports, a woman at this type of legacy media in sports. I think people are, I don't know, you may have some different stories than I do.
Some similar ones and maybe a bit more
Animated
testy.
in terms of their, why are you doing that? Why does she work there?
Right.
Things like that. So, no, I constantly call the boss Yoda. I'm like, this is Yoda, I'm the Padawan. He's taught me everything I know, and I'd say it's going pretty well. You haven't fired me yet, so it's got to be going somewhat well.
No, I haven't, and I don't see a reason to do that today. But tomorrow's another time. But yeah, QC Football Chronicle has crossed lines that people didn't necessarily believe existed, where you're talking about race, culture, sports, you know, the politics of it all. When you talk about media like the Post that's been around forever and has been in service to African Americans, you know, some people were frankly put off by the idea of covering a sport like soccer on a regular basis.
Exactly.
Because you know, I would hear from folks, black folks don't play soccer.
Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, well, for starters, it's a global game. And last time I checked, Africa and the Caribbean were part of the world. So, as well as the United States. And the greatest player of all time happened to be a black dude.
Right.
But some of this is flat out ignorance. And some of it may be something else, where, again, the politics come into play, where it's like, no, we don't do that, bro. But, you know, 20 years ago, black folks didn't play golf either. At least that's what they would believe you to think. You know, until Tiger Woods just showed up and, you know, started wiping folks out. But, again, you know, you run into that mindset that limits or would limit us if it were up to them. But that's purely out of ignorance. And to me, as a journalist, your job, again, is to help break that ignorance, to help people understand, no, this has been going on long before you home stuff. So, you know, that's some of what we've had to work on. It's not going to be a get it done right now kind of thing. We're working on it, but some of it is you have to just help folks understand and help them to understand, well, it's not going anywhere because Charlotte is the market now where soccer is a bigger deal now than it ever has been, and you just have to understand that.
It's given us an opportunity to break stories as well, whether that's, something like Arsenal coming here and, the website traffic is pouring in and you're like, whoa, oh, okay, well, no one has any idea about the team they ended up playing. Like, what, Fiorentina? What's that?
Like anybody actually cared about them.
No, but then it also gives us an opportunity to touch on things like the women's national team. We broke that story as well. And people were paying a lot of attention to that because of, pay equality and things like that. But it doesn't hurt that they happened to win the 2019 tournament. It doesn't happen to hurt that when you look at the current cycle of players who are called up to the women's national team, 5 of them happen to play right up the road in Cary, who play for the Courage, who happen to be a fairly dominant team for, shifting down from New York when they did. But then you've got Crystal Dunn, celebrated her 100th cap, and we did it, not gonna lie, it's still my favorite story ever that I've ever written. It was a very lengthy piece, and I'll always ask him after something of, just give me all the feedback. I'm like a puppy, just like, how'd it go? And just looking at that story and talking with Paul Riley about her club career and talking with Jill Ellis about, her evolution and when she coached her when she was younger, and the fact that, she and Paul Riley were basically neighbors when she was growing up, and then it was actually his wife who discovered her, and his wife was the one who coached her, and all these nitty-gritty things. And then to know that she celebrated her 100th cap against Mexico earlier this month, just the little stories like that, to see what she's done, what Jess McDonald overcame, what Lynn Williams has done. You wrote a feature about Lynn when they played Tennessee at Queens.
I actually contribute every now and again.
Oh yeah, the maestro does it all. Whatever you think I do, he does 75,000 times more. So. And does it without coffee. I still don't know how you do that. It blows my mind.
But no, I agree though completely with what you're kind of saying with the ignorance here, not just here in the city, but just in soccer in general in this country. I mean, when I moved here, and I've met some other black folks down here, and I tell them I play soccer, you see their eyes go wide immediately, like, oh, we have a black guy playing soccer? Like, I didn't know black people play soccer. Kind of just going off what you're saying, and it's always just, I just give them a little smile, and it's funny, like exactly why I'm doing this, trying to shine a light and show people and show our people that we can touch anything and dominate pretty much anything that we touch. So I definitely think it's a case of just not getting out of your bubble and learning about a different sport, because we're not the most dominant sport or athletes in sport here in this country. Soccer isn't in comparison to NFL, NBA, and all these other sports. So everyone turns an eye to it, but it's growing, like you said, in this city and in this country. We're on the verge of bringing a bunch of teenagers from Europe here with the national team. We're going to host a World Cup soon. Like, this country is due for a time soon. So that's just a case of just getting out of your bubble, educating yourself on the game of soccer, seeing that other minorities play this as well, and we can, right here doing this thing on a daily basis, we can dominate in this sport as well. So I definitely agree with a bunch of what you're saying.
Yeah, just because you haven't done it doesn't mean other folks are. And it's our job to turn you on to it. We're not going to force it to, on you, but it's pretty much a message of, well, here it is, and believe it or not, we're doing this, we're capable, and help yourself with some of that.
Right. So, sorry, go ahead.
To that end, a lot of people, even people near and dear to us, have said, all right, so you've got someone like, we'll use Kevon George, for instance, played in the Gold Cup with Trinidad and Tobago, right down the street at Bank of America Stadium in 2015, and then was signed by the Independents not too long after that. But people say, of course, you expect that. You expect it because of where he's from. You don't expect that from people who live in the States. They're going to play, basketball or football or whatever the case may be. Is that something that you've experienced as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. As soon as people see me, they instantly think I play basketball. So I'm always getting, I did play basketball my life as well, but that's the first thing from the jump. And then, just going off what you're saying, people expect, Caribbeans and other foreigners to maybe, play a sport, or when they see me, they're thinking, say I'm African, or yes, I am Jamaican, but I'm always getting an African reference. I'm always getting like, I'm not just a black American, I gotta be from another foreign country because I'm playing this sport. When I grew up in the system from Maryland, grew up with all my other African Americans playing the sport as well. All my boys still are dominating the sport since I've been in the youth. And I mean, there's a hashtag going on along on Twitter like a month or two ago, and it's like, soccer's always been black, and I'll put up a couple of pictures of that as well when I was a little boy. But my dad played at NC State. He played with a bunch of guys. He went to the Final Fours to play against UCLA, Bradford, doing a bunch of guys. And I mean, Kobe Jones and them. And we've been playing this sport for a while, and just that's why I kind of do this still. You know, we're still in taking a backseat to other races per se, but just to shine a light and continuously show that we're able to do this, we're capable of doing this on and off the field, and continuously grow this thing. So I definitely see this backlash, but I want to change an eye to it.
Something that we've experienced, we have another podcast called The Creatives, and we had our 2019 Mary Mahoney Memorial Scholarship recipient on there. And for him, as well as one of his classmates at UNCC, he mentioned that, you know, grew up playing football, tore his ACL in high school, and that for a while just wrecked his world. He thought, like, you know, the only way to achieve success is you've got to end up playing football, you've got to end up playing basketball, you've got to go to the NBA, you've got to go to the NFL, and that's it. That's it with your options. And now, you know, he's an artist, he's an actor, he's been heavily involved here with local theater, as well as the fellow classmate who, you know, they're like, that's it. That's all that is preached to you, is if you want to be successful, you've got to become a professional athlete. That's it. That's all that's there.
Well, maybe a rapper.
Or maybe. But was that something, you know, I, as a white woman, I can't speak to this, but for the two of you, is that something that is heavily poured in of, that's it, that's your path?
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with that, and I didn't encourage it with my own children. And I figure, you know, black folks need more athletes like you need a hole in the head. You know, we need more doctors and lawyers and professional folks. You know, nothing wrong with sports because it's something that brings people together, and it is a path to excellence. But you know, just like with anything else, some people are just bound and determined to want to do it. You know, but the same can be said for the professional class or an entrepreneur for that matter. You know, somehow I was just called to do it. You know, like me, my calling has always been journalism, you know, even from a child. And I was hoping that maybe I could do that after I got, you know, if I was good enough to make that leap to professional sports, because every boy has those dreams, basically, you know. But that wasn't for me, but I was cool with that because I had something else that I was really good at. So, you know, we all can't be professional athletes. It's a blessing if you get to that point, but you know, you have to find that thing that makes it worthwhile to get out of bed in the morning, because you shouldn't get out of bed in the morning to be mediocre at anything.
Can we have that framed, possibly, maybe?
Why not?
On a t-shirt.
Who's going to get the frame?
Bob. Bob, when we get back to the office.
Okay.
From an athlete's perspective, I mean, it's kind of hard not to. You grow up from a little boy playing the sport every single day. You have games. As a little boy, you're playing 2-3 games Saturday, Sunday, every single day. So for me, I grew up playing basketball and soccer since I was like 7, 8 years old. And I did that every summer, every day. And so you're thinking like, all right, everyone, all my friends were like, we're gonna be professional athletes one day. That's the reason why we're doing this. You know, you're talking about waking up in the morning. Well, you're waking up in the morning thinking of soccer, you're thinking of basketball. So in your mind, and you're seeing this on TV every time. So in your mindset, it's like, I want to be just like these guys. For my basketball peers, most of African Americans play basketball or football, and so we see that as one of our lead outlets, because we don't necessarily think. I'm not saying we don't think that we can do well in our books, but we're like, all right, we're gonna go to college just to reach the professional realm, not necessarily go to college for the education, think of life after. Nah, like, we've been doing this since we're little boys for a reason. We're gonna get this and achieve this greatness. And then once you get older, life starts to hit you. You start to realize, I was the best in high school, but I'm not the best in college anymore. So that kind of changed your mindset too. But it's hard not to, just from that standpoint. And I mean, I want to say soccer and basketball are kind of two different sports in that outlets, where soccer is more of like a mental sport, and people say it's one of the smartest sports in the game, or it's kind of like chess. And we see different, like that's how I kind of got started in what I'm doing now with this podcast. I was playing soccer all the time, and I'm just like, I'm tired of just being a one-dimensional athlete and just doing, soccer every single day for a couple of hours, just going back to my place and not really doing much. I want to broaden my horizon, reach out to different demographics, and just show people, all right, I can do more than just what I'm doing on this field. But I'm not sure, podcast is definitely a big trend now in basketball. You see basketball athletes doing that as well. But I don't think if I was doing basketball per se that I would have even thought of doing something outside of that realm. And yes, there's more money into it too, so people don't necessarily see an outlet of, oh, I have to do something else because I have millions of dollars in my bank account. But I know from a bunch of my peers and our mindsets from when we were in middle school or high school, it's like it's basketball or nothing. And even if in college, it's like, all right, I'm just gonna go overseas and play ball just because I love this game so much. So it's kind of hard not to, but as you get older and life starts to hit you and you start to realize you might not be the best in such, maybe in high school, college, or even the professional realm. So some athletes still retire now, even after a year or two of becoming a pro, because it's a dog-eat-dog world. And when money's involved now in the business realm, and you see guys getting cut, not necessarily because they're not talented enough, or it's because they don't fit the business company and their assets for the company. And so, yeah, you just start to think of, all right, let me find other ideas and different ways to kind of make a difference in this. So,
yeah, it's important to have the passion, and if you have a passion, no matter what it is, it's in your best interest to pursue it, because you never can tell. I mean, and if you're driven hard enough, chances are you will find a way through, and it may not be necessarily what you see it as today, but at some point, that light will come on. So it's always important to follow your passion, and if it's a sport, follow it to the end. But also be aware that sooner or later, every athlete gets retired, one way or another.
So how do you guys kind of stay regularly updated? You can start with QC Chronicle. I know I see you at practice, I see you at games and stuff.
You guys are stuck with me, yes. Yes.
Not just with that, but just in the soccer realm in general. How are you staying? How do you regularly stay updated?
It kind of becomes like breathing almost. There's just this innate side of you develop those relationships, which is something that you definitely taught me. You make sure people, your manners will get you through doors that other things never could. And the reasons that we were able to break a lot of these stories is people trust you. Like, hey, we know you're going to take care of this. So it's, in part, you have to do your own research, whether that's going out to practices, games, calling people up, or if you're lucky enough, they bring it to you, which kind of takes care of some of the legwork. Not all of it, but some of it. But yeah, to that end, it's just a matter of developing those relationships and staying up on top of as much as you possibly can. And we've joked about this with MLS coming here forever, and I'd say if it gets here, I will never sleep. I'm convinced you don't sleep. But
well, I'm just upside down every night and just looking for the next thing to do.
In the bat cave, with just a good quick 2-hour nap and then go. But yeah.
What's kind of lacking in the soccer community in the city?
I would say there are a lot of fickle fans. You have a lot of people who...
Well, that's for every sport.
True, very true. But you have people who, don't get me wrong, the owners of the Independence and McPhillies, they're fabulous people. They are some of the kindest people I've ever met. And again, I'll put a testament to the whole mom dieting experience and just the way that, not just the Charlotte soccer scene in general, but the way that club reached out and said, you're going through hell, and whatever you need, like, we've got you. They showed up with a card that was signed and a little Amelie's gift card after that, and I was like, oh, wow. And I know this is something that with you get into a sport or cover a sport like this, and you touched on it with the Panthers and when your girls were born, and just there's an element of it is very businesslike, but at the same time, there's still that human element. But to answer your question about what does this soccer scene need, I personally think it needs more awareness for the women's game. Because I know there are so many of my teammates in college, I love to play, but I don't care about the game. There's no future for me here. Maybe I get to play in Europe for a year. NWSL wasn't really a thing when I was in school, and we'd seen leagues fold. We knew about the 99ers, but that was a handful of women. It's okay, you go, you play in college, maybe you coach, but there's no future for you here. No one actually cares about your game. Your game's slow. No one cares about this. This is whatever. And then you see what the women's national team has accomplished. You see what the Courage have accomplished, and what all of these other teams. It's starting to make people. It's making my niece's generation sit up and believe, like, we can do this. We can actually have a career in this. So, to that end, it's great that Charlotte has all of the options that it does. It has a phenomenal D1 program in the 49ers in University City. It's got a great program in Queens at the D2 level. And of course, what's happening at the youth level here is also great. That you've got 3rd division with Stumptown Athletic. You have the Independents at 2nd division. Now, next season, there'll be MLS. That's great. But it's men. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the game. You tell me that there's a pickup game going on in Ramir Bearden Park right now, I'll sprint over there in heels. But where do the women fit into all of this? So it's one thing for someone like me to say, yeah, we're going to drive that train until we either run into a wall or run out of coffee.
Right.
I think we'd probably hit the wall first.
Yeah, probably.
I completely agree with that too. I mean, I think women's soccer might be the biggest sport for women here in this country in general. I feel like every girl that I've known usually played soccer at some point in the youth, or even just in general, you see there's a big wave of soccer, of girls just in general playing soccer. And I mean, for me too, per se, you're the first female I've ever had on my show, and I've been wanting female athletes as well on my show as well, and just to not only shine a light on their perspective, but just to show women are actually doing what we're doing as well, talk about their lifestyles and things. So I've been inserted for myself as well, trying to get a female's perspective, so thank you for being the first female.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I completely agree. I think there needs to be more light shown on that as well. And I mean, it was good that they had the national team here last summer out. Are they doing that again this summer?
I don't believe that, I mean, as of right now, not that I'm aware of, but I mean, of course there's still the limited side of things when it comes to the women's national team, because a lot of people say, oh yeah, women's national team, I believe red, white, and blue, it's so great, American Outlaws, yay! And then when it comes to, well, can you name someone other than Alex Morgan?
Exactly. Right.
Do you know someone other than because you like how they look? Do you know? Maybe? Like,
Well, but you got to start somewhere.
that's
but
like going to say that.
really, I mean, that's okay. Just like golf. I mean, how many people knew of any kind of professional golfer who wasn't Arnold Palmer or Jack Nicklaus before the '90s rolled around and Tiger Woods? It's like, oh well, because that person, Tiger Woods, he crossed all kinds of boundaries. It was no longer just a golf thing with him. It was a cultural thing. It was an athletic thing because, you know, like you still have the argument of, well, is golf actually a sport? So, you know, you have to start somewhere. And if you want that general acceptance by people who are not necessarily in the clique of knowledgeable soccer folks, then yeah, and Alex Morgan is your foray into that greater understanding. And so to me, but if I can throw in a little 2 cents over here as far as like what Charlotte needs in terms of soccer, I would say Charlotte needs what America needs. It needs a greater appreciation for the American game. And I think Major League Soccer, USL, and whoever else, a lot of times, Americans look down on it because they've been snobified by the European game.
I agree.
And, like to me, I watch the European players and things like that, and I'm like, okay, well, that's cool. But I'm more of a domestic guy. I like my soccer like I like my beer. I want it American made. Now, that's my Al Bundy moment.
That's something I was just talking to Enzo about that last episode too. Enzo said last show that kids here in America just don't watch soccer in general.
Yeah.
And going off that, you're rather watching a European game on a weekend than your own domestic team in your own city, in your own country. So I think it needs to be more light shown on the MLS here in this country, shown on TV, media in general. So we live the same, all right, we don't have millions of dollars like in basketball and NFL, but you can live lavishly off $300K in this country, and this.
I know I could.
You know what I'm saying? There's many guys here in our
We're
league
comfortable on that.
are very comfortable in doing the same lifestyles per se. It might not be just the same amount, but they're living lavishly in their lifestyles because they're professional athletes. So to shine that light, I was just talking to, I think, Aaron Mount last night about that as well. It just needs to be some more light shown on this so people get a greater respect for that.
I mean, because I understand, I'm sorry,
No,
but, you know, and I understand that the European game is supposed to be the best on the planet. I get that, I totally understand it. But there is, what is the old saying, different strokes for different folks. And sure, the American national team isn't very good on the men's side these days, but that's almost beside the point as far as I'm concerned. It's like, okay, but it's still professional soccer. It's an American game. It moves to its own vibe.
Right.
And so it should be appreciated for what it is. If you want it to be the best in the world, okay, but that's going to take time because America is way, way behind on that curve. But in the meantime, you have a pretty entertaining sport that's played on this side of the pond. And I think that for me, if folks in Charlotte would really embrace the MLS squad, in addition to the Europeans, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not a binary decision one or the other, but
For some of us,
get
it
into
is.
it. Well, and see, and that's the
Well,
point.
there's also our hard and fast rule of if you cover it, you are therefore not a fan of it, or if you are, you better bury that deep down and keep it hidden.
Well, yeah, because business is business.
Exactly. No one's going into a Panthers press box and cheering, and if they are, they should get out.
Well,
But-
I've seen that happen though.
Oh god, it's awful. But when you look at that side of things in terms of just like you said, the media coverage as a player, of course you're stuck with us. But what do you want to see in terms of coverage? Do you want more of those in-depth player features? Do you want more analysis of games and tactics and things that only the diehards or the students of the game are going to understand? Or do you want to know, hey, what does this guy, like, what's his life look like off the pitch? Or does it have to be more, again, two people, we can only cover so much, working on that. But what do players want to see? Because at the end of the day, as much as we're here for readers who aren't out there for 90 plus minutes, we're also here for you.
I have to say all the above, to be honest. Like, we want...
More coffee, got it.
I mean, from your standpoint, it's tough. You guys also don't do visual like that, but from our standpoint, like, people that come at practice just to see, give people an inside view to what we're doing on our daily jobs, game footage behind the scenes, like not necessarily in the locker room, but you can record or just talk about what's going on the field. We don't necessarily get any kind of video footage like that, at least sent to us. And I mean, just the lifestyle off the field, that's why I kind of do this, kind of shine a light into that. So I got cameras just to do some visual aspects. But like I said, we kind of live the same similar lifestyle to other professional realms. So why can't our lifestyle be shining to that light as well? And I mean, yeah, just that is some of the biggest things. Visuals, the highlights, or game clips as well, game footage. You see all Bleacher Report, all these accounts have basketball, NFL, dope highlights, which is cool. But it's not even just USL, just the MLS. Let's start with the MLS. There's nothing of preseason footage was going on with the preseason. You can just simply do, oh, here's a live look at DC United's camp right now. The whole soccer world's together. We're looking at different camps now. We're seeing how so-and-so trains and prepares before a game, after a game, how they're preparing in the preseason. Like, I know all the diehards want to see that, but there's just no coverage on that. And I know it talks about money now, more video coverage, and all these things, and more money has to be dumped into it. But for starters, like, that's a great way for people to stay connected and have that relationship base with their fans and, you know, just the community in general. So I think will be a great start for us, and it's kind of why I'm doing this. But I think, yeah, definitely needs to be shined upon.
You're not asking for much. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Right?
So for the Charlotte Post, though, how do you guys stay regularly updated?
Oh, well,
How do you stay updated in the community?
Because we've been around for so long and we've got those roots, we have a very good relationship with folks who've been here for a while, and it's not enough. Because you've got people who are coming here daily from someplace else, and they don't know Charlotte's history. They don't know Charlotte's movers and shakers, and some of them are still trying to figure out how to get from home to work.
Or which Sharon they happen to be driving on.
All nine of them.
Road.
Yeah, and how streets miraculously change names within a mile radius.
Mm-hmm.
So I liken it to the canine kingdom. You can be a watchdog, which has generally been the province of daily newspapers. You can be a service dog, which is kind of like what the Post is, because we're here to help people navigate their day-to-day lives in terms of the what, the who, the why, and things like that. But the third one we will never be, and that's a lap dog. So our thing is to be of service to readers, help them navigate, help them to understand history, culture, and just the people who live here. And to do that, you have to get past those folks who've been readers for 20 or 30 years or grew up with the paper, and also embrace folks who are new to Charlotte and may not necessarily know about us.
Right.
And that's the trick these days.
Right.
Get to know them as well as that core group. And
Right.
so we've done a fairly decent job of it.
Because I feel like your outlet and your post is very important for the community. I mean, when I go on the site and I see all the topics you're discussing, I'm like, all right, that's very prevalent and relevant, but just how did you even come up with it? Like, I wouldn't know from a regular outsider perspective that's even important to talk about. So I just feel like every topic that you're discussing is very vital and important to the community, because we need to know the issues that's going on and how they're going to be solved and stuff. That's kind of why I asked, how are you staying updated? Because I see that what you're doing, and I think it's very vital and important. I'm just like, how did you even know that? I don't know. I did just move here and stuff too. I'm not really from the area, but like,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, because what it really comes down to is you ask yourself, why?
Right.
And maybe even just as important is why not?
Right.
And when you talk about some of the issues that Charlotte faces that are beyond sports, because sports, let's face it, it's there for us to have a good time with.
Right.
But
Just entertaining, right?
but we've got real world issues going on that affect your children's education, or where your tax dollars are going, or even life and death things. And so for us, it's a matter of asking that question. If you see something and you get to thinking, what's going on with that? And then you start just basically knocking on doors, sending emails, or using that old school telephone to reach out to folks, because it's all about human capital. And can you make those connections with humans in order to make your journalism worthwhile?
Makes complete sense. So I see you guys have been doing a good amount of meetings with some guys in the MLS staff and attending MLS meetings as well.
They're really harassing everyone. It's what we do. Well, it's what I do.
So
He's
what's
my
that
sister.
been like? What's the buzz around the city and then conferences and the meetings and stuff like that? What have they been talking about?
It's interesting discussing. We'll use Dustin Swinehart, for instance. We went over to MLS HQ and met with him. And for people who are ingrained in Charlotte soccer, that name means something. And for everything he accomplished with the Eagles, to see that transfer into the community role that he's taking on with Charlotte MLS. I mean, talk about walking history and smile sans coffee. God, I don't know how you people do it. It's interesting to see that side of things versus someone like Mark Nichols, who is embracing a totally different role and knowing, hey, he was out there when you guys were playing Stumpton, and it's okay. There has to be an academy arm for MLS, but next year there does not have to be the relationship between MLS and USL. So what do they want to pursue? What's in their best interest to pursue? They're running on a tight clock of 10 months and counting until their first season's right around the corner. So how much do you take on? Is it a matter of, all right, let's just get the team up and running, we'll have a reserve side, but other things might not necessarily be in their best interest. So things like that. And then there's, of course, Jorge joining them. So I'm sure everyone who listens to the show knows who Jorge is, knows his ties with the Eagles. And
does he have a role already?
He does. He has a community role. We broke that story the day that the Independents announced his retirement. And to that end, a lot of people, again, it comes down to those relationships of who's willing to trust you with that information versus someone saying, oh yeah, he's just retiring, that's all, game over, thanks so much for everything. But no, he'll join Dustin in that capacity. So technically he is their 5th hire. They're supposed to announce that officially today, but who knows, it's raining. Charlotte might get a wash in the rain.
Well, they could.
No, that's great for him. I'm very happy for him. What's Tepper been saying? Has he been in those meetings as well?
So when they did their spiel with Classroom Central and donated $120,000 to that, yay, new school supplies, because goodness knows it's flu season, lots of tissues are needed, plus pencils and paper and everything else. But, turning to him and him saying, had a 2-hour meeting about soccer today. 2 hours? that tweet, apparently people found quite humorous. So there are talks about them not even playing at Bank of America Stadium, which would be interesting, and that becomes a question of, right, where do you put it? The only place big enough is Jerry Richardson Stadium at UNCC, which means you're playing on turf, which means you're playing with about 16,000 capacity. When you've got over 22,000 ticket deposits already there, do you really want to do that? And how many people are going to piss off by doing that? So they are currently in the process of just as quickly as humanly possible trying to get stadium renovations going on. So that's not only, yes, they're doing bunker suites, but they're also hosting the Mexican national team next month in a little, a month and 2 days. Today is the 24th, right?
26th, yeah.
So
what were some of the reasons why they wanted to host a Mexican national team?
So something that Don Garber pointed out when they made the announcement, and asking him, hey, are you worried about that at all in terms of attendance? And he said he was a lot less worried about it than he was 2 years ago. But he referred to it as quietly testing the market for the last decade. Last decade? That's before ICC even existed. But, seeing the traction that it's gotten, the economic impact that it's produced for the city. When you talk about the attendance has gone down for ICC, but the economic impact continues to go up. So,
maybe that's a lot of folks who live in Charlotte are partaking, but not necessarily going to the matches.
Hey, as long as I don't bring my boys here, I'm great. Don't bring them here. I do not want to cover that team. Let me have my one sanctuary. That's all I ask.
And to that other end, when you're talking about the ICC and attendance, they're not necessarily bringing the sexiest teams here either.
Oh, please say that a little louder for all the Arsenal fans.
So, if you really want to see what Charlotte will do, then, you may want, bring some of the, and I guess around here, this is more of a Premier League town, if you can say that. So it may be a Chelsea or a Manchester United that if they are picked to come to Charlotte, then I think you would see better attendance. I'm not so sure if Bundesliga squads really move the needle, or La Liga, but then again, who's to say? I mean, and I think you would also get better attendance if you're talking about hyping stars as opposed to teams. So, if Messi shows up, I think you would probably get a fairly decent turnout.
If you put Real Madrid and Manchester United in Bank of America Stadium, that thing's going to be packed. And that will be standing room only. And
they would be in the wall-to-wall, treetop tall kinds of attendance.
There are certain clubs that, I love them dearly, and I'm so happy we beat Watford yesterday and kept a clean sheet. But dear God, it is painful to be a United supporter right now. It is absolute trash. To go from the Fergie era to David Moyes and everything since then. But still, there are certain clubs that have the prestige and the name, and you put them in that stadium, and that thing's going to be packed. It doesn't matter how bad their season is.
Yeah, so Manchester United is sort of like the Yankees or the Dallas Cowboys or the Lakers. They're going to draw a crowd wherever they go. Okay, yeah.
Just a little bit.
Think because of the culture and diversity here in the city is the reason why we got an MLS team, why soccer is...
David Tepper's got more money than God, that's why we got an MLS team here.
Of course, but even when I moved down here, the Spanish community is very strong. It's much bigger than I even imagined when I moved down here too. Do you feel like because the city is very diverse and has a lot of different cultures here in the city, it's kind of the reason why the city got the MLS team is why it's going to grow.
I would say number one is David Tepper's money. He wanted a franchise, and by gumption, he got it. And the MLS folks they're not going to fool anybody other than, if you say, well, you know what, they're bringing in ownership groups that have lots of bucks.
Right.
I mean, so it's like really rich people that they're going after as owners, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Charlotte has the demographics that you're looking for now. Charlotte is starting to skew younger, and it has that ethnic mix that can lend itself to some things. Now, to me, the question is, can the MLS franchise leverage a relationship
Right.
with the Hispanic and Latinx community to bring them out? So, does that require doing Spanish language advertising and game broadcasts, or just going into communities and literally speaking their language,
Right.
in terms of come on out and see the product?
I agree with that.
To that end, when the Independents played Santos Laguna, Sportsplex was packed.
Mm.
But when you go to a match on a regular basis, not so much.
All right.
Why do you think that is? Is it a matter of marketing, front office, or I hate to put you on the spot, but well,
What the heck?
we still are asking some of the questions, and it is that element of okay being out in Matthews, and I know people have said for years, wait until the team gets into Memorial, it'll be completely packed, but
You've seen it.
why do people show up for one, particularly if you're following the train of thought that this is the community that you want to cater to?
Right.
Why show up for one and not the other?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I want to think more is because of a foreign base. It's not necessarily because it's the domestic team. Like we were talking about earlier, the domestic love here isn't that strong. But when you bring in a foreign team per se, it can be from any country, but the foreign aspect must be much better than America at soccer. These guys actually know football. It's like, let's see a great entertaining game, because again, they're still sleeping on American soccer. They don't really think domestically is that big in comparison to the rest of the world. And so I feel like that aspect, I mean, I'm sure there's more that goes into it, but I definitely think that because the foreign aspect, everyone wants to see. And again, it's not another domestic match between two, maybe local teams, NCFC or something. It's actually bringing international talent. So, oh wow, exciting! Like, let's see this now. It's actually going to be a good match instead of an Independence versus NCFC, which is still a big rivalry. But I feel like people are going to come out more to a foreign-based game than a domestic one.
So people need to stop sleeping on American soccer.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, but I even think that if you look further south at Atlanta and the job that they've done in bringing that entire community together, because before
They've done a great job.
United showed up there, nobody mistook Atlanta as a soccer city.
Right.
It's like Atlanta. Let's see, that's the Braves and maybe the Falcons if they're halfway decent sometimes.
Right.
But it has turned into Soccer City USA because of the job that the franchise has done in bringing different groups of people together under one banner.
Right.
Folks from the suburbs show up. They've done a really good job in reaching out to the African American community, and they have their own supporters clubs and things like that. And they really get into it. Now, they may not necessarily be able to tell you about all the intricacies and all that, but you can't talk bad about their team, or else some fisticuffs might break
You're
out.
telling me the soccer mom from give me a suburb of Atlanta.
Let's say Smyrna.
Yeah,
or
there.
something
She
like
can't
that.
tell me what a 2nd-6 ball is.
No.
Dang
No.
So close.
No. I mean, but that's part of their success. They've reached out to folks, and they sell soccer culture. They're not necessarily selling soccer as a sport.
But it doesn't hurt that their first couple of seasons, they go out, they host the All-Star game, their second season.
Win the MLS Cup.
They have so.
Yeah.
Who do you think should be the inaugural manager for Charlotte MLS?
Probably.
You.
I'd love to, right?
Just call up Mike. All right, Jeffries, have you gotten the call? Okay, it's happening. Good. Breaking news.
So we got a couple minutes here. I think they gotta record a couple shows, but you have some fan questions. Before we get to the fan questions real quick, with CIAA coming up this week, how you guys been preparing for it?
Coffee.
Coffee?
So much coffee.
Working really hard at putting together stuff on the court as well as off the court because it's the last go round in Charlotte.
This is this year?
Yeah, it's
That's
moving to
Baltimore.
Baltimore starting next year.
Wow, I'm definitely going out then myself. I didn't know it was the last one.
I mean, hey, you have the two local teams who are seeded 1 and 2. So.
Are they?
Yeah,
Oh, cool.
I
I'll
mean,
be there. I'll be there, definitely. So you have a question from Matt TW. Whose idea was it to begin a soccer-specific media outlet at the Post? Was there hesitation or resistance in the beginning? And does it seem like the obvious choice now?
Let's see.
Who's
Ashley,
that?
yes and yes. Yeah, that's it. No, but those were the answers.
Yeah.
Ashley started,
Yep.
it was her
Respect,
idea,
respect.
and yes to the other two. We saw it as an opportunity to reach new people, and we didn't necessarily care what they did other than that they like soccer and are willing to follow it. Seemed to be the right call at the time.
Right.
Do I emotionally
Still
refer
is
to
now.
it as my child? Yes.
Of course.
Yes. I think it's either my Twitter or Instagram bio is something about QCFC, the post soccer specific child. Yeah.
Same thing for me with this too, so
Oh.
I feel you. And Dave Dixon, assistant coach for the Independents, wants to know
David.
what have been your top 3 moments so far? What have been your top 3 moments you've covered so far?
Ooh. Let's see. What was it? It was Mexico and Trinidad and Tobago.
2015 Gold
Yeah,
Cup.
when the stadium
shook
was
the press
shaking.
Yep.
Really? Wow.
Oh, that was a great fun.
Wow.
And the Mexican fans were throwing stuff on the field
Wow.
and allegedly using some sort of slur. But I think it was all good.
Yeah.
But that was fun. To me, that is what big time soccer
Right.
should feel like and look like. You got 2 more. Go ahead.
Or would you have combined 3 or 3 each?
Either or, whatever.
Do you have 2 more?
Oh, well, I've got 1 more, I think. Before you even got to the Post, I did a story, this must have been 2013 or so, something like that, on Garinger High School. And Garinger is not known as a sports powerhouse at anything these days, but back during that particular time, Garinger had one of the best soccer programs in the state, and it was like the United Nations. You had kids
Wow.
from Africa, you had kids from Europe, you had kids from Central and South America, and they kicked everybody around here. And folks could not believe it. Here at Myers Park or Providence, some of the traditional powers,
Yeah.
they couldn't believe it. Mouths were agape at these kids from these third world countries coming over and showing everybody what's up with how soccer is played. And to me, that was a really cool moment, especially when you're talking about high school kids.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm trying to find the post for the exact date that coincides with this, but the Charlotte Eagles winning the PDL, now USL League 2, but Dave Dixon was actually the head coach for that, and
Talks about that too.
seeing what he did with that team, and a lot of those kids have gone on to play professionally, what he was able to take with kids from NAIA, he's not pulling kids from Chapel Hill or other traditional powerhouse D1 programs. That man can make the best chicken salad, to pull my dad's reference. He can make some delicious chicken salad. But that one, as well as the women's national team here, October 3rd, I had a very nostalgic 7-year-old Ashley watching the Women's World Cup at the Meadowlands, the opener against Norway in 1999, and to see, if you told 7-year-old me that you're not going to get to play, honey, you're not going to play at that level, but you're going to get to cover it. Right. You're going to watch Jill Ellis make history. You're going to write that story. I would have told you were crazy. But those, and then the night that the first Independence hat trick was scored. I can't find the specific date, but it was at the Sportsplex. And I remember it was a rain out. It was the Independents playing Toronto at Ramblewood. And there were some really bad storms when they played at Ramblewood. I don't think they've had quite as many.
Yes, I had experiences there myself.
Oh yeah, they were. Tom Engstrom's out there with a broom sweeping the water off the field, but Jorge came on as a sub, scored 2 goals. I'm like, it's gonna be it. This is gonna be the night. Finally gonna score a hat trick, and then they called the game.
Oh my God!
Kidding me? And then to finally see that hat trick actually happen it's kind of nice.
Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. It's been an awesome experience.
Thank
Very
you.
informative one, very good episode.
We hope we haven't chased your listeners off.
Definitely not. You guys will follow them on any social media platform. Make sure you give them a follow at QC Chronicle and the Charlotte Post, Twitter, Facebook, IG, and all that. Send them love, comment, let them know what you guys think of this episode. Backyard Footy is brought to you by the BGN Network of Podcasts. That's BGN.FM on the internet.